Hey everybody, Angela Ardolino with Your Natural Dog, and my guest today is Kara Rose, who is a functional health practitioner and nutritionist. And I'm having her on today because I'm starting a series called Just Say No. As you know, I always want to have you just say no to drugs and find out that all natural holistic modality that exists in Mother Nature that will help you. But I'm diving into vitamins and minerals and how the majority of vitamin and mineral supplements and our pet supplements are all made of synthetic chemicals and don't come from real sources of vitamins. So we're doing a deep dive today on recognizing synthetic vitamins and minerals versus real food source ones, how to find them, are there any good products out there, and how to get them from real food. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we're back with Kara, who is one of my favorite people in this space right now because her and I get down to the nitty gritty on things. I call her and go, what the hell is this? I just read this on an ingredient label, and we rip it apart and do research. And let me tell you what, this has been quite the research project. I feel like I'm working on my thesis for something or whatever, because it's so misleading. It's so hard to understand. You and I were just on here trying to figure out, how does someone know whether a vitamin or a mineral is actually a real one and not from a synthetic source? Because 9 times out of 10, especially in our pet supplements, they are synthetic versions of vitamin and minerals. And the reason that I'm doing this is because I feel like pet parents are learning about food and not realizing how much can get messed up by having bad supplements or bad ingredients, and or a food that, let's say, is a raw or freeze-dried or dehydrated, but to make it complete and balanced to AAFCO standards, they throw on a packet of vitamins and minerals that aren't those all, or is the AAFCO whatever, they're all synthetic. So what happens now is havoc. So you've literally destroyed a perfectly good food by adding this. So we're going to do a deep dive on vitamins and minerals and what they mean, how to identify the bad ones, how to get the good ones, what we actually need. What the hell does complete and balanced mean? How come we're able as humans to get this far without worrying about that we got the enough nutrition, every single day? You're a professional in this realm. Tell me about it.
So everything that you just said is 100% correct. And the biggest thing that I want to highlight, if I can highlight anything at all, it's that people don't eat off spreadsheets unless there's a very specific reason. And our pets also should not be doing that. So I know that you do not go into the USDA food database and check how much calcium and how much phosphorus and how much magnesium is in the piece of, chicken breast that you just grilled. And then you're checking to see how much vitamin K is in the salad that you put it over. And you're checking to see how much linoleic acid or, and other fats are in the dressing that you poured over it, right? You're not doing that at the end of the day. Maybe you might count your calories. Maybe you might track your foods if you're trying to do, a weight loss, or if you're training for something, but nobody eats off a spreadsheet. So I have no idea why we started thinking that our pets needed to do so. I don't know where this comes from. It's crazy.
It's so messed up when you think about our dogs, who literally are scavengers going out and eating anything dead or gross or poop or whatever. And here we are going,
snack on the sidewalk.
Right. But here I am. I have to follow a spreadsheet to get you. Yeah, it makes no sense at all. And what I think the biggest crime here is that the person who is trying to make their own dog's food, because they understand it's so hard to get a quality food, and now they're told, even by a holistic veterinarian, you better make sure that's complete and balanced. And what do? They sell them a container full of powder, which says this is how you make it complete and balanced. And they scoop and throw that in. And again, sometimes it may have some real, but a lot of times the majority of it is synthetic vitamins and minerals, which are going to literally take away that wonderful meal's complete quality. It literally will cause leaching of vitamins and minerals from your animal and or overabundance or the liver storing copper or minerals and really causing some serious havoc. On top of that, people are also using these products as they are buying a formulated raw food or freeze-dried or whatever, and then throwing these things on thinking they're giving them extra vitamin minerals, and instead they're doing the complete opposite and making things worse. Talk about like even how the liver takes and stores things and how these synthetics like confuse the hell out of the liver.
Yeah, so it can be a really big problem. So first of all, like one of the issues is that when you have something that's synthetic, so synthetic means it was created over here in a laboratory by this scientist versus I went outside and picked a raspberry off the bush and got some nutrients, right? And these chemical structures can be mirror images, but that doesn't mean that they're going to bind appropriately. And so sometimes you get a substance that the body doesn't recognize very well, and that can cause it to have decreased uptake, or what's usually even more dangerous, or at least more dangerous in the short term, is it can cause it to have increased uptake. It's too bioavailable. So the best, I think, example I can use to describe this is if you like seaweed. I am a big lover of seaweed snacks, a little bit of avocado oil, a little bit of salt, and I eat some seaweed. Well, seaweed is full of iodine. My body knows how much iodine it needs. It's going to uptake the amount of iodine from the food, but the majority of it is going to be excreted, aka I'm going to poop out that seaweed and all of the extra iodine I didn't need with it.
But you're also going to get a whole bunch of other awesome things from that seaweed, not just that iodine, and it's going to feed the gut and all that good stuff.
Oh yeah, so all the good stuff, selenium, B vitamins, everything, right? But if I take just an iodine supplement, a synthetic iodine, my body can hold on to all of that iodine, and that can negatively impact my thyroid. So it's difficult because you can have too much of something which is dangerous, and then you can have too little of something which it takes a little bit longer for it to be dangerous, but in the long run, it will lead to nutritional deficiencies. So nothing exists in a vacuum in nature. It doesn't exist that way. So really shouldn't be taking things that exist in a vacuum, be it in pill form. It's just not meant to be like that. You don't have your bioactives. You don't have the constituents that you need to truly absorb the appropriate amount in the appropriate way.
Exactly. And in layman terms, the body recognizes the seaweed and does not recognize that supplement or isolate or even a synthetic version of that iodine. So the body is going to react the wrong way, whether it's too much, not enough. What about the ones like, I don't remember which ones it is, but like a synthetic vitamin that literally causes other vitamins to be leached out of the body because it's a synthetic form. And when you give it to the body in its full form and its whole form, just like whole food, whole plant extracts, whole mushroom extracts, the body knows what they are, recognizes them, puts them to work. And again, if they get too much or they don't need it, they get rid of it because they know what it is. The body knows what it is.
Yeah. One of the ones that can kind of similarly do that is, so copper. When you think of copper and zinc, they have a very important relationship. And you need like X amount of copper compared to X amount of zinc or Y amount of zinc. If you have too much copper, what ends up happening is it's going to bind to all those little receptors because they both bind similarly, and it's going to kick zinc off. So now you might have zinc in the diet, but it doesn't matter because you have so much copper that it completely saturates the receptors. Almost think about you spill something on the counter and you have to grab a rag and you're mopping it all up. But now this rag is so saturated that it's literally dripping as you're trying to mop. That's what's happening with all of the copper, and the zinc has nowhere to go. And then you can end up with a zinc deficiency simply because you had too much of something that didn't belong. And that can cause all kinds of issues with the liver and just all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy when we started going down this. I know we know immediately some of the top ones, the copper and the things that just accumulate and cause so much havoc. But all of them, we got to see every single vitamin and mineral out there that's a synthetic version, and every single one. and we've put a chart together. So we will have a downloadable link for all of our little guides and charts that we made because we needed to keep track of it because it was too much. But let's bring up vitamin A, for instance. We're literally trying to sit here and figure out how to tell our listeners how to identify whether that vitamin A is from a real source or whether it's synthetic. And then you said it. You said if it says vitamin A, it's from a synthetic source. Or if it says vitamin A and doesn't say what it's the natural from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if it just says it, well, we don't know. Or if it says something like vitamin A palmitate, that's a chemical, that's a synthetic. Now, if it says vitamin A from beef liver, it's beef liver. And they're just explaining that beef liver is naturally high in vitamin A, and that's where it's coming from in this product. So if it just straight up says vitamin XYZ, it's a synthetic. If it has a chemical name after it, it's a synthetic.
It's a synthetic.
But if it's from this food source, vitamin C from camu, that's a real vegetable. It's a fruit, actually. It's a real food. It's not a synthetic. So it's a very important distinction. And it can be really hard to figure it out. We came up with a
perfect example for was it vitamin E?
Yeah, vitamin E. Yeah.
So vitamin E, same thing. It could be mixed tocopherols. I think we said that right, which is most likely going to be naturally derived, but sometimes it's not. And if it has the word alpha tocopherol in front of it, or it says acetate, or here's a new one, tocotrienol. Literally, the guideline is if there's words you can't pronounce, synthetic. I feel like we should just say words that can't be pronounced, synthetic. It says vitamin A, synthetic. Whatever it is.
Very high likelihood, yeah. And you can look it up. There's nothing wrong with whipping out your phone when you're in the pet food aisle at the store and going, I can't pronounce this to save my life. Let me type it into my handy dandy portable computer and ask what this is. Type it in and say, is this a synthetic vitamin or mineral? And if the answer is yes, put it back.
Exactly. Don't recognize something. Don't know what it is. Put it back. And you guys have to understand that they're going to say things like vitamin A and even say vitamin A or citric acid and things that sound natural, and they are not. There could be citric acid that is derived from a natural form, and there can be citric acid derived from petroleum, if you can believe it or not. Literally, there's a scale on both sides. And when you do find that company that's not using the synthetics, most time they're not using them at all because they understand the impact that they have. But I wanted to go through some of the things that they cause. Some of the heartache and problems, like, of course, toxicity, which a lot of people remember. What was it, a couple years ago, 10 years ago now? God.
Vitamin D.
Yeah. So what happened there? So we had the Hills Science diet that had the vitamin D super high levels of vitamin D in it, and were extremely toxic and hurt and killed a lot of dogs. And what's messed up, it's because it was a synthetic version. It makes you wonder if it was not a synthetic version of vitamin D, the body would go, nope, I got way too much of this. Let me get rid of it. But because it was a synthetic version of vitamin D, that did not happen. So
exactly.
What do you know about that? Because I remember that was one of the first times that a lot of us went, what? They messed up and put too much of a vitamin in it?
Yeah. And I mean, thousands of animals died. And there's an estimate out there. I don't know where this comes from, but they say that only about a maximum of 10% of an animal death from something like a food or a medicine or a flea or tick chemical is actually reported. The other 90% is not. So I think it was like 6,000 pets or something like that, or 10, it was multiple thousands of pets died. Multiply that by 90, and that's how many actually died. It's terrifying. And so what ends up happening when you have vitamin D toxicity is it causes kidney failure and liver failure. And so you die because your detox pathways shut down and you can't metabolize anything. And
are they shutting down because they're exhausted? They can no longer detox because they're just overwhelmed?
Well, they can't. I mean, they're not going to be able to perform their functions, like their detox function, but the actual organ itself is directly impacted by this synthetic. So, and then the result of that is it can't detox anymore. Yeah.
Oh, got it. Understand. then that makes sense.
It's terrible.
And that's a Hills science diet. And this is still going on a regular basis, and it'll get blamed for something else. Or we don't know what happens when you put a whole bunch of synthetic vitamins and minerals together. But we do know what happens. We know that 1 in 4 dogs now is going to get cancer. That's what happens. That is what is happening. Even for us who are learning how to feed real food, we still have to remember to look at everything else in our dog's environment. So diet is absolutely the foundation. But I'm telling you, I know too many of you that contact me every single day and say, I don't understand. I'm doing the diet. I'm doing the da-da-da-da-da. And then I'll go, tell me everything. And it's that treat or that spray or that supplement. It's always the supplement, always the supplement. And it happened in my own house. I mean, I remember, taking and reading the supplements and going, oh, this is from a holistic doctor and a holistic all natural supplement. What? Yep. This is the other thing, guys. If we don't start reading the labels and start finding those companies that are doing things right, from sourcing to preservatives to everything else, they're going to go away because we can't stay in business. And your only choice is going to be crap and chemicals. Yeah. So we need to, and we do. I know you're going to call out because we literally, Kara and I went on the search to see if there was a vitamin and mineral supplement that was made from all natural ingredients, whole food sources. And there literally is only a handful, you guys. So Kara has that guide. So be sure to look in the notes so you can download that. But let's go over some of the most important ones and the best sources that we can get them from.
So the big ones that come up for me are going to be the fat-soluble vitamins. And the reason is because your body holds on to those a little bit longer than your water-soluble vitamins. So you tend to pee those out at the end of the day versus the fat-soluble, your A, D, E, and K. You store them in your fat. So vitamin A is a big one, which we already mentioned. And vitamin A you get from liver, mostly. It's like your best source. And unfortunately, vitamin A is one of the ones that can be the most toxic. And so it can cause liver failure and liver damage if you get too much of it. So when you see something on a label that says like retinol, or retinol palmate, retinol acetate, that's a synthetic, or if it just says vitamin A. But retinol is the vitamin A that's found in animal sources. And then beta carotene is what you find in vegetable sources. Essentially, that's what makes a lot of vegetables yellow or orange. So carrots have a lot of beta carotene. Sweet potatoes have a lot of beta carotene, right? And then your best animal sources of vitamin A will be things like liver and eggs. So you can find these things in natural sources. The trouble lies with knowing what foods have them, right? And not everybody is a nutritionist. I didn't know this before years ago when I fell down this rabbit hole. That's why I've created some guides and some nutrient flashcards. And I even have courses where I talk about all of these things so that you can just literally have a roadmap that says, looking for this, go here. It just makes it a lot easier for you. Vitamin D is another big one, which, we already called out Hills, not only 2016, but then I think there was another recall in 2020 for vitamin D. Oh,
you're right, because there was one on cats and then on dogs, the same thing happened all over again, meaning they didn't even bother to fix the problem or address the problem. They went ahead and let it happen again.
And it's because it's this big mixed pack of this powdered vitamin and mineral supplements. So it's not even like they're shaking in this much vitamin D and this much vitamin A and a little sprinkle over here of vitamin B12, right? They have this giant bowl of just mixed powder and they dump it into when they're done extruding the feed quality ingredients. And they don't make it in-house. These companies, they source them from overseas, China. It's not good.
Yeah, we're going to do a whole nother episode on all the fillers, additives, dyes, flavorings that are in pet supplements, that all 4 of those things I just listed, there's thousands and thousands versions of them, and none of them need to be in your supplement. The only thing that needs to be in a liquid or a powdered or a capsule is some sort of safe preservative. Everything else is to cut cost and save money. So if you're reading those inactive ingredients, like on our tinctures, it's literally organic vegetable glycerin and some distilled water. When you look at the others, there's things like cellulose, stearic acid, citric acid. Oh gosh, I could read some of them. And then if it's a vitamin supplement, it's like calcium citrate, choline dihydrogen citrate. Those are the first two. I'm literally reading something right now. Those are the first two I know immediately. It's a synthetic version. I also know when it's this long and big and has words that I can't pronounce, it's a synthetic version. So when I learned that, when you see words you don't recognize on the ingredients moved on, that was the most helpful thing to me.
Yeah.
Because I don't even need to look them up. It's a made up, manufactured, in a lab thing that I don't want in my pet's body and I don't want in my body. The other thing that bothers me is that people use these things that are supposed to keep, make a raw food or a home cooked meal balanced. They're throwing this on things that already are balanced. So now we're giving too much of stuff. Let's do vitamin D, because I really loved how we came up with vitamin E, and that was a good example. But let's talk about vitamin D, because man.
Yeah.
And then what's crazy is that they have this listed on a supplement, right? A powder supplement says it has all these vitamins in it, but mushrooms have all of these vitamins and minerals naturally. And I can't list it on the label because it would be really, really long. But instead of trying to put all these powders together, literally eating a mushroom alone, mushrooms that are grown and exposed to sun are one of the best sources of vitamin D ever, and everybody is deficient in vitamin D. So, okay, now I'll turn vitamin D over to you.
Myself included. So you're absolutely right. So I remember when I told my husband this, his mind was like blown. I love that you can take mushrooms, chop them up to increase their surface area, put them out in direct sunshine for like 10 to 20 minutes before cooking, and you can increase their vitamin D by tenfold. It's amazing.
So I want you to imagine what it's like when they're grown in sunshine.
Crazy, right? And then you can increase it even more. So yes, which is another reason why it's so important to use a species appropriate substrate like soil and decaying matter and trees. But I digress. That's Angie's forte. But yeah, so vitamin D. So I was deficient in vitamin D, and I found this out last year. And so I went out and I got myself a vitamin D supplement. Now, this was before I became very, very strict in terms of how I wanted to deal with synthetics versus real food for myself. For my animals, I've always been a bit more
But what you're
stringent.
about to share is exactly what I feel like pet parents go through. We learned this.
Exactly.
We went out and did it. We didn't realize that there was also bad players in that, and there's a good and a bad in every single step of the way. Every single step of finding true holistic health and wellness is steps, because there's always going to be people who are going to put out products because it's unregulated. Nobody's making sure there's not toxins in your pet supplements or your human supplements. So it's our job, and it's like a learning. And the biggest thing you can do is just read that label. So what happened to this supplement that you got, Kara?
Well, I went out and I got this supplement. Somebody recommended it to me, Warrior Strong Wellness Supplement. And this is vitamin D3 with K2, because vitamin D is well absorbed with K. So if I go to the back of this bottle, the active ingredients are vitamin D and vitamin K. But then if I scooch down to the other ingredients, or the inactive ingredients, there is hypromellulose, rice flour, dicalcium phosphate, and magnesium stearate. And I never stopped to look at the extra crap that I was putting in my body just because I was deficient in vitamin D. When, do you know what I could have been doing all along? I could have gotten myself a single ingredient fermented cod liver oil. Now you can, someone a little bit less crazy might put it in a capsule instead of just getting the straight up liquid. But so Solutions Pet Products, which is probably one of my favorite brands, has a fermented cod liver oil. This is literally one single thing, fermented cod liver oil. And this is packed full of vitamin D, vitamin A. There's more than just one thing in here, right? But I know that this is an excellent source of vitamin D. And because I'm taking it in whole food form, I'm going to absorb this significantly better than this, because your body will only absorb about 2 to 3% of a synthetic vitamin or mineral. It's a no-brainer.
Wow. So we're literally all those other inactive ingredients and whatever they make the vitamin or mineral from or derive it from.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it's that small amount, but it's causing so much work for your liver and kidneys. It's also, a lot of the ingredients are destroying the gut microbiome and killing the good microbiota. The body also has to figure out, identify what the hell it is, what am I supposed to do with it, all of that. Instead of your body doing what it's supposed to do, which is detoxify and heal and grow. And if your dog can't do that, if it's constantly dealing with all of these synthetics. So we don't need to go through every bite of vitamin because there's a lot of them.
There are a lot.
What would be your best advice for a pet parent who really wants to, get away from throwing supplements on to make it balanced and adding? What are some of your favorite food sources for getting vitamin and minerals? We said mushrooms, great for vitamin D, a lot of the minerals, great source for the minerals. But what are some of your other favorites?
Well, so, really it's just going to be feeding a species appropriate diet, right? So what does that mean for our dogs and our cats? Meat, bone, organs, some fish, small amount of vegetable matter prepped in a way that their body's able to break it down and absorb it. And you have like your powerhouse nutrients, right? Liver is a huge one. Other secreting organs like kidney, spleen, super important.
Okay, so I have a question for you. So liver. Don't I need to know how where that liver came from and how the animal was raised that liver came from? Because all I think about is I want to stay away from that liver because that's what was detoxifying, the animal. So if I'm got a factory farmed cow, I don't want his liver. I don't want to feed my animal that liver. So again, and I see people going to the grocery store or going to Costco and buying, things in bulk. And I'm like, where did that come from?
Right. What is your sourcing? Because it starts from birth to humane slaughter, right? So how an animal is born and the parents that animal was born to, right? What was their microbiome? How was their health? That first sets them up for their own microbiome. Then how was it raised? What did it eat? What conditions was it in? Did it have to get multiple rounds of antibiotics because it was in a feedlot surrounded by disease and standing in a quagmire? All of these things will influence the nutrients that are provided once you consume that animal. Or in terms of a plant, is this a monocropped plant? Did this corn come from miles and miles of only corn, which means that they're extremely susceptible to pests, and so they're
genetically modified it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they're genetically modified so that they can survive the pesticides that we spray on them, which we only have to do because we perform monocropping. Plus, those pesticides are completely stripping the soil of its nutrients, which means if the plant is sucking up nutrients from the soil, well, if they're not there, then they're not in the plant, and then they're not there when you consume them. So everything from, planting to being born to the time you pick it or slaughter it to consume it will determine your profiles. You're right. So if you're going to eat liver, that's where I tend to splurge, and I get my grass-fed regeneratively raised liver if I can, because that's going to give you the best nutrient profile.
We already need another chart, which is when you're choosing organs.
I know.
Because
you know what? You're right. I will work on that.
I literally avoid liver when it's not clear to me where it's coming from because of that reason. But it's not like it's there on a package. Just yesterday I went into probably 5 different stores, and a lot of them are freeze drying their own organs. And it's just a little brown bag with a bunch of freeze dried liver pieces in it. And you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know unless you're
ask.
walking into that place that's like, and I walked into a place called Marin Raw that was, we were just at Maxwell's together where no synthetic ingredients are allowed in their establishment. And to me, I'm like, they did the homework for you. They keep up on it. They've either probably had their own bad experience or they thought they were doing everything right. And that's what I hate is that these pet parents think they're doing everything and they have no idea that someone's trying to just sell them something that they don't need.
They just want to make a buck. You're right.
Yeah. And it does cause damage.
It does cause damage, and it can cause long-term, lasting, irreversible damage, and
it causes cancer. The reason it's causing cancer, not only is it causing cancer, it's also taking the body's ability away to fight it and get rid of it, or never happen in the first place. So it's like a double whammy, and I hate it. I hate that that's happening to us as pet parents, and that we have to be freaking experts and read every label, and not only read label. When I was working on this podcast, I was like, I've been keeping this chart of every time I come across another synthetic ingredient, and I can't. There's thousands and thousands under each category. And we just found out red dye number 3 finally got banned, even though they have 2 years to take it out of our food. Pretty sure that doesn't include dog food. It'll probably be left in that. But what about blue and yellow and red 40 and all the other ones? Why are they still in there? Why?
And why are they banned in other countries, but not ours?
Exactly.
And that just leads you down the rabbit hole of who are the governing bodies and why are they taking so long to do anything about it? Or why do they seem to not care in the first place? And I feel like in this instance, what we're really talking about is, why does AAFCO say that these things are okay? Right?
Right. I just learned that Canada doesn't have an AAFCO. And they're like, we should have an AAFCO. And I'm like, why?
No.
Why should they have an AAFCO? Because they just last year they made hemp generally recognized as safe. They finally let hemp on there. And what that's triggered is you would think is good news, but it's not. But sawdust and dead animals and bugs are generally recognized as safe and okay. But God forbid you put an all natural plant that has been proven over and over again to be amazing. And we can't do it. So us as pet parents have to do the hard work.
Right. We have to be our own governing bodies and decide what we feel is appropriate for our pets, not the American Association of Feed Control officials, not food. Feed control, because they are in charge of feed grade pet products. It's not even real food. So that's not who I want governing my pet's food and supplements. I am my pet's best advocate, and I know what's best for them.
And what works for you works for them too. So even if you're going down this journey and figuring it out, it's figuring it out for your whole family. You don't ever forget. You just keep on learning and getting better and better. And we hope to help you along the way. Any of your other favorite food sources for vitamins?
I love eggs. Big lover of eggs, pasture raised. So there's 3 things that I will really stand my ground on. One is my eggs have to be pasture raised or I don't want them. The second is my liver. I try my darndest to get it from a grass-fed and finished source. And then my third is my vegetables have to be organic, because I'm not going to completely wreck a diet, a beautiful, varied diet, by putting something that was so heavily sprayed with glyphosate and other pesticides, which are antimicrobial. It's going to completely wipe out all the other beneficial ingredients that I put in the bowl. So those are like my 3. The line is drawn. I will die on this hill. That's what goes into my pet's food. Yeah. Food,
great.
Not feed.
And I want to add, and I like that you said that, I want to add your mushrooms, and that you want your mushrooms grown on the appropriate, being fed the biologically appropriate diet of that substrate. Because if those mushrooms are, and that this is a new thing I just heard got said by a competitor, it doesn't matter where mushrooms grow. Are you freaking kidding me?
All right, well, I gotta go. So, come on, man.
It matters.
That's what gives some of them their compounds. Like, if you like, what is it that is in chaga? Betulinic acid. I'm sorry, if you grow that on anything other than a birch tree, you're not going to get it. But tell me more about how it doesn't matter what it's grown.
And I can say that for every single mushroom and where they got the compound and how they pulled it off out of what they're, so it absolutely matters where, the conditions and what they're growing on, of what medicinal compounds that they have. But I just want to tell this little story about being at a farmer's market here in California. And I had a mushroom, a guy with all of his mushrooms. And I knew he was my guy because he had shiitake with a little bit of sun, and shiitake with a whole bunch of sun. which literally they were almost gooey and looked so unappealing and attractive. And I went, I want those.
Yep.
But that's the way it is. Like, people don't look for that perfect one. I'm telling you, if it's being, bathed in the sun every day, it's going to be a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. And I hope we didn't scare anybody. We made a whole bunch of guides to try to help you make it easy. But yeah, just read those ingredients, especially the inactive ingredients, because they are called inactive, but they absolutely have an action inside the body. And they absolutely wreak havoc, and there is a side effects to those things. So be sure to do your best to get your dog's vitamin minerals from whole food sources. And again, we'll have a download for you to see what those are, so that you don't have to cause your dog's liver and kidneys to overwork or store or deplete or do all the things that it's not supposed to.
Yep, 100%. And when you're choosing a food, you're choosing a company, what are your values? Make sure that they match, right? Like, make sure you're going with a company that is sourcing from humanely slaughtered animals and animals who were raised humanely. Make sure they're using organic ingredients. Make sure that they're not throwing those synthetics in there. I gave you the example earlier of Solutions for their cod liver oil, but I just ordered some of their food for my cats, and I was so excited that it came in the mail today that I ran outside in my pajamas and I startled the postman. But when you look at the back of the package and you look at the ingredients, all you see listed is whole food form. It is all food. And the only place that it says anything that could even be construed as a synthetic is it says wheat germ oil in parentheses, vitamin E. They're just explaining this is your vitamin E and it's helping to preserve this food, but it's coming from food, wheat germ oil, right? Like, that's what you're looking for. Top of the line, no synthetics, top quality ingredients. Those are the companies that you want to align with and the foods that you want to feed your pets.
Absolutely. And call them if you need to. Ask them where their beef liver comes from or how their beef are raised or whatever it is, because it'll help. And then unfortunately, you do have to keep up in case they get sold or someone buys in. But the same thing that she just said goes for supplements also. Yeah. Read the ingredients. You read any of my products, it's literally just the active ingredients that are in it and a safe preservative so that it can stay safe and natural and not go bad. Mm-hmm. But other than that, everything else doesn't need to be in there. So it's like, I've made this a part of my Just Say No series. My Just Say No to drugs, my Just Say No to synthetic vitamins and minerals, because they suck.
I almost wore that shirt. I should have worn it, Ange.
I wore it yesterday.
Just Say No shirt. It's okay. Next time.
That's okay. Your mushrooms and cannabis represented. I'm glad you had that on. And again, that's another reason why mushrooms and cannabis will save the world, because they do so much good for us that they really can help us with almost everything. But Kara, thank you so much for sharing your wonderful brain with us. And I know we'll have you on again. And again, if you want to go to our show notes, we'll have a whole bunch of links to downloads where you can get information from Kara, and I will have them. So to try to help make this journey of keeping your dogs healthy and healing naturally a little bit easier.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Please make sure to leave us a review wherever you're listening from. This is the best way to help pet parents like you find these episodes and get access to all our content. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Your Natural Dog and at AngelaArdolino.com.